Week 15 is in the books for all but two teams. This was an interesting week as the playoff picture is more clear now than ever on the NFC side, and on the AFC side, the Ravens face a very real possibility of being an 11-win, 8-seed team, which of course would mean they don't make the playoffs. We had a potential duel of the future in the desert with Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray both throwing for over 330 yards and 3 touchdowns. We're going to dive into everything from this week in today's video, and in today's video there are going to be some franchise-altering discussions. Now before we get started, we are so close to 15,000 subscribers, and I would be extremely appreciative if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and get me to 15,000 before Christmas. We are less than 30 away, and as always, all support is very much appreciated. Please like the video too, as each only take a second to do and go a long way. Now let's begin. And as always, we start today's video by saying the takeaways are in no order of importance and are in general the biggest takeaways of the week. So we're starting with the Jets finally winning a game and what this means. So good for a team winning a game, and I suppose good for Adam Gase for not being added to an 0-16 coach list which consisted of Hugh Jackson and Rod Marinelli. They won, and like we said, good for them, but at what cost? Unfortunately, we saw this last year in week 16 when the Giants beat Washington to go from 2-12 to 3-12 and lost out on Chase Young. We've seen the Giants struggle with pass rush this year, and having a generational talent like Chase Young obviously would have helped with that. No disrespect to Andrew Thomas, as he can be a fine left tackle, but he's not a Walter Jones or Jonathan Ogden player. So the Jets at this point in time have the number 2 overall draft pick and could very well end up losing on Trevor Lawrence. Now obviously NFL teams can't willingly say we're tanking and we want to lose to get this once in a decade prospect, but if there were ever a time to lose a game, it is now. It was time to call a horrendous play defensively or just mess something up. And no NFL team wants to go winless, we all know that, but there's definitely people upstairs that want to in order to set themselves up for a much brighter future. And to be clear, I don't mean they want to go winless, but they also don't exactly mind it to acquire the services of Trevor Lawrence either. They won, and what's kind of funny is who they beat. They beat a team that I've been hyping up for a few weeks now as a team that will cause problems for the Packers or Saints of the world. And what's even worse for LA is they are now a game back of Seattle for the division title. They will play them this week for essentially the title, but this is a horrendous loss for the Rams. However, in a weird way, this may be a good wake-up call for them because this was, in every sense, a trap game. There's no doubt they had to have been thinking heading into the game, we play the Seahawks for the division next week, let's just walk past the 0-13 Jets. Well, the Jets more than proved that any given Sunday 100% stands, and this was a trap game for the Rams. Sean McVay will have the Rams more focused now than ever, and it will be drilled into their heads this week that anybody can win on any given Sunday, and pretty much to get their heads out of their rear ends. Next week's game for the NFC West title will be must-see because the Rams will be giving the Seahawks 120%, especially after coming off of a loss to the 0-13 Jets. So next we go to the desert to discuss Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. On Sunday, Jalen threw for 338 yards and 3 touchdowns and completed passes to 9 different receivers. He led the Eagles to 26 points on Sunday and 24 last week against the Saints. 50 in 2 games equates to 25 per contest, and for comparison, Carson Wentz led the Eagles to 253 in 12 games, which equates to 21 per. Now, we are only 2 games into Hurts' starting career, and teams could very well figure out how to slow him down next year, but as of now, it's very telling who the Eagles quarterback of the future is. Eagles fans obviously want to have something to cheer for on top of it, and with the scrutiny and pressure Carson Wentz has had under the past few months, it's good that Jalen is succeeding for everyone but Carson Wentz. This has been more than a year to forget for Carson, and his time in Philadelphia starting at least is over. Wentz is a polarizing player, don't get me wrong, but there are 2 ways to look at this situation. On the one side, Jalen has been efficient as a passer and has led the same weapons Carson has had to more than a field goal of a difference per game since he took over as their starter. The excuse or rationalization made for Carson was the weapons are bad, the play calling is bad, and it's not a direct reflection on him as a player. However, since Jalen took over, there seems to be little struggle with him as their quarterback, and the Eagles not only beat the Saints last week, but nearly beat the Cardinals in the desert after overcoming a 16 16-point deficit. I think it's safe to say if Carson Wentz was the starter on Sunday, the Eagles probably would have let things snowball from where they were, and the game ends up being a blowout. Obviously, things didn't turn out that way, and they had a rookie quarterback in his second start go for over 400 total yards and 4 total touchdowns. But for Carson's future, now, Carson probably won't be an MVP candidate ever again. 2017 was probably his peak, and we recognize that, but I also don't think it's fair to say to expect 2020 Wentz every year for the rest of his career either. He was on a 16-game pace to throw for 21 touchdowns and 20 interceptions, and have a passer rating of just 72.8. That's definitely not the Carson Wentz we've seen prior to 2020, and it's not what we should expect for the rest of time either. His time in Philly is effectively over, and the best thing for him going forward, and this is what would be, not what I'm predicting to be clear, but would be to start for a low market team like a Jaguars or a Panthers team to essentially get his feet back in front of him. This is a strange career trajectory, but everyone's is different, and obviously we know the contract situation doesn't help anything either. But Jalen Hurts as of now is the future, and Carson Wentz at this point in time is in no man's land. Next, we discuss the AFC and the outlook for this conference. So first, congratulations to the Buffalo Bills on winning their first division title in 25 years, and a Bills Mafia who will get to see them host a playoff game. But the wild card specifically is very wide open right now, and we will more than likely have at least one 10-win team miss the playoffs. The NFL certainly didn't envision that when they added a 7th seed, but in the same sense, what more can they do? Just being realistic, we can't have a best of 3 in the NFL, because a series would take 3 weeks in a lot of cases, and then we would have roughly another full season added onto the schedule by the time the season would be over. And of course, the season would go on to at least March, if not April, and we can't have that. This is going to be an unfortunate reality for the NFL in its first season of 7 teams in the playoffs. The Chiefs are probably going to go 15-1, as their final 2 games are home against the Falcons and Chargers, so they pretty much have the first round bye locked up, which is more than fair to say at this point in time. But what's not good for the AFC is the Steelers or Bills could very well be a 12 or 13 win team playing on wildcard weekend. It's very rare we have 3 12-game winners in one conference, and even more rare to have 3 13-game winners in a conference, and what sucks for them is that they won't get a first round bye. More games in the playoffs obviously equals more money for the NFL, which is what they care about most, but in the same sense, this is terrible for teams like the Steelers and the Bills. Yes, we all knew this was coming into the season, but I think it's fair to say no one thought there would be 3 13-game winners or 3 12-game winners, and that a potentially 11-5 team would be an 8 seed and miss the playoffs. The worst part for some of these teams is you can't really even say tough luck, just play better, because in probably every other year in the league's 101-year history, that would be good enough to make the playoffs as a 7 seed. The only actual scenario that I think would work out, or that the NFL would propose out of this, would be to have 16 teams make the playoffs rather than 14, and have 4 teams in each conference have first round byes. I doubt it would come that far, because for a year where every team in the AFC is good, we would certainly have 2 or 3 7 and 9 teams make the playoffs. Again, that's what I think would happen. I don't think it'll ever actually happen in real life, just a proposal. Like I said, this is going to be an unfortunate year for NFL teams, but in the same sense, there's really not a lot the NFL can do. And we wrap today's video up with discussion of the Seahawks and a few final takeaways at the end, which I recommend sticking around for. The Seahawks beat the football team Sunday with a score of 20-15 in a game where Russell Wilson didn't look great. He threw for just 121 yards, and the football team nearly beat them with Dwayne Haskins as their starting quarterback. Haskins is, and I think 99% of people would agree, not good, and the Seahawks nearly lost to them. It's going to be interesting for this game they have against the Rams this week, but they are not going far in the playoffs at this point in time. If they somehow end up beating the Rams, then they will have a home playoff game, but after that it won't much matter. They are, as far as I'm concerned, done, because they're not going to go out on the road and beat Green Bay in the playoffs. They may give them a game, but it's going to take serious hero ball for Russell Wilson, and then it would take the Packers or Saints crumbling on top of it. I don't see any way Seattle goes far in the playoffs this year at this point in time. Now, for Washington, this in a way is encouraging, because they are 6-8 on the year, and their final 2 games are home against Carolina and at Philly. With how Philly has played under Jalen Hurts is a little concerning, but there is no reason they can't beat them. This team, and more specifically their defensive line, is scary and will cause teams problems in the playoffs. Getting Alex Smith back would be even bigger, and they can definitely win a playoff game if he's back and if he's healthy. They lost a close game to the Seahawks with Haskins, and I 100% think if Alex Smith plays that game yesterday, then they win. They are not a bad football team by any means, and if they win the division, they will be thorns in team sides. Now, for the rest of Week 15. If anybody is going to contend against Kansas City, it will be the Bills. I really hope we have a Buffalo-Kansas City AFC Championship game, because if we do, then it will truly be the best two teams in the conference. The Bills are playing great football at the right time, and you cannot credit them enough for how well they are playing. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are a terrific duo, and they will probably win a playoff game for the first time in years, in Buffalo that is. Good for the city of Buffalo when they do so. Cleveland is a 10-win team for the first time in 13 years, and it's the same thing for Cleveland. Good for them, and they 100% deserve it, and their fans do too. And the last thought for today's video is it's going to be fun over the last 2 weeks to see how everything plays out. This truly is the best time of the year football-wise, and with two teams added in the playoffs, I really can't wait to see how it all unfolds. My predictions for the championship games as of now are the Bills, Chiefs, and the Saints and the Packers. Now, with that being said, that's all I have. If you're still watching, I appreciate the time out of your day. Remember, we are so close to 15,000, so please hit that subscribe button if you're still watching. You're awesome. I hope you know that, and I will talk to you guys real soon. Have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.